choice from a Tim Pool's perspective.
I'm pro-choice from a traditional liberal perspective, as traditional liberals
not from what people who would define themselves as pro-choice would say, right? Like you concentrate very heavily on the 9th month abortions and baby guillotines and stuff like that. Like
what?
Yeah. I remember watching you debate
baby guillotines.
Yeah. Okay. So baby guillotines is my own personal interpretation and joke of it. But you were talking about how women, how like disgusted you are that women may have an abortion in the 9th month, right? Or even
a viable baby
of a viable baby. I wanted to scream at that time, being like, women who have abortions in the 9th month, they're not doing that because they got bored or all of a sudden they're like, oh, I don't care anymore. They do that because it's a fucking tragedy. Like statistics.
Just so you know, this is not actually what they say at the Socialist Reproductive Justice Conference. This talking point is never mentioned at the Socialist Reproductive Justice Conference. It's only a talking point that they trot out when they're on conservative media and they're talking about abortion. So this is not something they say when they're amongst their friends. It's only something they say when they're amongst their enemies.
Statistically, women who are getting abortions in the 9th month is because there's a medical complication that could kill them. That's why they have to do it. What do you mean false argument? False. That's the real world.
I already said viable. I'd try again.
What are you talking about, Tim?
I already said abortion of viable fetuses at 9 months.
This is ridiculous.
Do you know what viable means?
Yes.
It means the baby can survive on its own without medical complications.
Absolutely.
And why legalize abortion of viable fetuses at 9 months when the baby could just be delivered?
Women are not getting abortions at the 9th month for pleasure or because they want to suddenly do it for kicks. No, that doesn't happen. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy of the highest. Because there are medical operations that could kill the mother and they need to get an abortion.
Why legalize?
I just told you that's the reason why.
So all right, I'll try and break it down for you. Can the baby survive? Let's talk about a baby. The baby can survive on its own. Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
In this instance, Tim is correct, and the leftist guy is a moron. If you can take the baby, like if the mother needs the baby to be removed from their body in order to live, then there is no rule that says that the only way that you can remove the baby from the body is by having an abortion and killing the baby, even though the baby can live outside of the body. If the goal is to save the mother's life by removing the child, just have a C-section and remove the goddamn child. Like, this is not hard. Put the child in an incubator, take the child away, put the child up for adoption, do whatever you want. But there is nothing that says that you have to kill the baby in order to save the life of the mother when the baby can live outside the womb.
Because I already said I agree with you. A woman should be able to end her pregnancy whenever she wants. A woman could end her pregnancy whenever she wants. Say it. Tim Pool said a woman can end her pregnancy whenever she wants.
Yeah, I demand you
aborting and giving birth are both ending a pregnancy.
Make up something fake. Tim Pool agrees with forced birth is a false statement. You're lying. I have already said I believe that women have a right to terminate their pregnancy to a certain amount of time.
At 8 months is where you draw the line.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you just said that. If the baby is viable, that she shouldn't have the right to be able to terminate it.
To kill the baby.
Yes.
I said she can end the pregnancy whenever she wants.
And ending the pregnancy can be giving birth or aborting the baby.
Or a C-section that keeps the baby alive.
She has to be forced to give birth against her will in a C-section, but the baby is viable and they give it off.
So how do they remove the baby? So hold on,
either way the baby comes out of her. You're saying that
so you literally want forced birth. You literally want to force women to give birth against their will.
Bro. If you have a baby that is 9 months old in the body, having a C-section to remove the child at your request is not forced birth. You're going to have to remove the baby at some point. Is he quite literally saying if you killed the baby and then removed it, that's not forced birth? But if you just have a C-section and remove the child, that is forced birth? This guy is a moron.
So you're saying you're saying they should use the tools to rip apart the body and pull that out. Whereas I'm saying they should just take the baby
I'm saying
out.
she should have the right to decide what happens to her body. That's it.
Okay, but either way, the child is coming out. You're making this argument about forced birth. Either way, what is in her body is going to be outside of it. The question is it okay to shove forceps into the skull of the small person who's inside of her and then tear them apart limb by limb to get them out? Or should we say, no, that's not an acceptable way of delivering a baby. You shouldn't kill that unborn child. How is that for either way it comes out of her body? Either way the child comes out of her body. It's not as if there's one scenario where the pregnancy magically disappears and doesn't leave the body.
Let me add, forced birth is a nonsense politics statement.
But in your scenario, she's being forced to give birth against her will. Like she's
decide. Already pregnant, dude.
I know, but
we're not talking about forcing her to do anything. She's pregnant.
But then endorse that position.
I did.
Stick by it.
I know. I reject the. There's no such thing as forced birth. They're saying you can't kill that baby.
Let me tell you how fascinating this is.
Because she has.
I cannot even believe I'm up at 2:30 in the morning listening to this. All right, we're gonna do this for a little bit while longer, guys. But like, have we reached peak crazy of this episode? Can someone let me know? Does it get worse after this, or have we kind of like peaked with the abortion discussion? Jenny's getting inky with it. Says, wait till the surf guy says pregnant women. So there's something about meth. Oh, great. Should be reported to CPS because they are endangering the lives of their baby. Oh, wow. Okay. So we'll get through the meth peak. Okay. I didn't know there was a meth section. Great.
The baby inside her.
So
yes, she does.
fervent about legalizing the killing of a baby at 9 months that I can sit here and say, I think women should be able to terminate their pregnancy whenever they want. But if the baby is viable, there's no reason
she has to be forced to give it then. She has to be forced to give birth and then give the baby up, is what you're saying.
Give birth. Define.
Yes. Okay. So that is forced birth, right? So she can't decide to terminate it at 8 or 9 months.
Define give birth.
You just said at 8 months if the baby is viable.
I didn't say 8 months. Define give birth. I'm trying to understand what you're saying by forced birth. What does birth mean?
You just said when she is at 8 or 9 months. Okay, so she's at 8 or 9.
I said viable.
Okay, so it's viable. The baby's viable. She should have to give birth to it in some capacity. C-section, whatever.
Define birth, and I can answer your question.
Birth. The removal of a child into the world from a mother's womb.
If the so how do they do that?
The woman pushes the baby out.
So then what would you call an abortion at 8 months? Is the woman pushing the baby out?
No, it's most likely a medical procedure done by a doctor.
And what is that medical procedure?
An abortion.
But what is that?
What is an abortion?
Yes, like what?
How is it done?
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure how it's done at 8 months. I know earlier on it's usually done with a series of tools. I don't know how it's done at 8 or 9
months. Okay, so your moral argument is forced birth. I'm trying to understand what your position is. If you don't know how an abortion is done, then are you in favor of forced birth?
Am I in favor of forced? No, I'm against forced birth.
But you think that women should have to expel the baby, right?
It's completely fine for me not to know the medical procedure of how abortion is done to stand up for the rights of a woman's body. I don't need to know how people perform abortions directly. I'm not going to lie here. I'm not going to pretend.
Removing a baby from a woman's body is birth.
Oh, so you're saying it doesn't count?
No.
It's birth of a different nature.
I don't think you have a definition, and I'm trying to understand what you mean by forced birth. But if you can't define the removal of the baby in a different way, I don't know what you're saying.
Birth, Tim, like the birth of a child.
So it's a C-section of birth.
Sure. Yes, it is a form of extracting a living child that is viable to live in the real world.
That's how you define birth: extracting a living child to live in the real world.
No, I would define birth as someone giving birth. They are pushing a baby out of their body.
So I don't think women should be forced to do that, right?
You don't think women should be forced to push babies out of their body?
But the baby is in their body, so it's got to come out somehow.
So you're going to take it out with a C-section?
No, I don't know. Okay. But I'm trying to figure out what you mean by.
I'm in absolute bewilderment that this is the conversation that's being had, because this is one of the most genuinely stupid things I have ever witnessed in my life. I feel that I have lost IQ points in the course of watching this conversation. This is the type of shit that makes me hate every single content creator on the internet. It is content creators like this. Tim is actually, for as uppity and aggressive as Tim started out this stream, Tim is actually being so fucking patient in trying to walk him through this. Like, no, Lance, you don't understand. You're not tracking. Let's back up. Let's do it again. Let's go a little bit slower. Like, the fact that this guy is in a position to influence people is mind-bogglingly terrifying. I don't get it. Jen, thank you for the super chat. Do you know how vacuum works? Sorry, that was holy shit, Jen. Based Jen. Holy shit. Wow. Jen, I did not see that coming. I really didn't. All right. Let's keep going. Fine, whatever.
So that would be forced birth. So she's forced to give and make a viable child, live in the real world.
I mean, so when you're pregnant, the baby's going to come out of you at some point.
That's the
Either
point.
we rip
no
it
matter
apart
what
or
happens,
you give birth
the baby
naturally.
is coming out of the woman, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So there's no being in favor of that or not. It happens. Period.
Yes.
Okay. So what's your point?
What's my point?
Am I in favor of a natural process by which a woman has to have a baby removed from her, no matter what anyone says or does?
Your point is that at 8 or 9 months, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Tim.
You are wrong. Yes, I'll stop you right there because when you keep saying 8 or 9 months, that's not what I said over and over and over again.
Viability is after 6 months.
Viability is
that means that there's more than a 50% chance
but you're also wrong. It's not 6 months.
So as soon as the baby
it's not 6 months.
So as soon as the baby is viable, Tim, as soon as the baby is viable, then it's okay for the woman, even if she doesn't want to have it anymore for whatever reason, she should have to be forced to have it extracted from her and then live. Is that correct?
She's gonna have it. You fucking moron. She's gonna have it extracted from her either way. Either way, the baby needs to exit the body. This is not too much to ask. I am sorry. It is not too much to ask to say if a baby is viable, can we just put it up for adoption? This is not an unreasonable request.
It's not forcing the woman to have a baby live if the baby's already alive. You see what I'm saying? Like,
right. So you're okay. So we're talking about semantics.
I got a compromise for you. I got a compromise for you. We'll tell the mother we killed it, but we'll sneak it off and give it to someone else. Does that work for you?
No, because I still think she should have autonomy. She should have the right to do it if she wants to.
Of course, she should kill the baby after it's already born.
I don't want her to kill a baby. I want her to have.
Why do you keep saying it?
Because I want her to have the ability to choose. That's different, and that is a fundamental part of this.
The baby's out of her body, right?
Forcibly. In your scenario.
No. Let's say 24 weeks. The woman goes to the doctor and says, "I want this baby out of me." And
what if she says, "I don't want to have this baby"?
I don't want to have this baby. Okay. And the doctor says, "I will remove it."
Okay.
The baby's alive. What do we do?
So you forced her to give birth?
No. She said, "Doctor, I'd like an abortion." He says, "You got it." Step right up.
He's lying to her.
No. He does the abortion and it fails. And
an abortion is terminating a pregnancy. So there's no such thing as a trick abortion. You can't.
They're called failed abortions.
Failed abortions,
yes.
Where doctors trick women into taking their babies out?
No. So when they perform the abortion, as Seamus explained, they stick metal tools into the brain, scramble it up, and rip its body parts apart, and then pull it out chunk by chunk.
Okay.
When the babies are smaller, sometimes they pull them out, but the babies don't die; they survive. Mm-hmm. Right. So my question is, in the instance of a failed abortion, what should be done?
A failed abortion being that the child is living; it's outside of the mother.
Yeah.
At that point, you cannot kill that child. That would be murder.
Oh, okay.
Precisely.
Agreed on that point.
Right.
Yeah.
So then where does the mother's choice come in
before that procedure takes place? So she has a choice to choose what she wants to have done with her body. If she goes to a doctor and the doctor's like, I'm going to perform an abortion.
You were there, buddy.
The assumption would be that I'm about to terminate the child, but then he just secretly sneaks the child out of there. That's not performing an abortion. You're just being deceptive.
Yeah, and the doctor should go to prison if they did something like that, in my opinion.
I think you should go to prison if he performs an abortion.
Snap.
Yeah.
I heard that. Not surprised.
Opposite perspective.
So there's also something that none of us know, because I don't think any of us are medical doctors, the difference on the physiology of the female body.
Ian's about to throw a wrench into this whole, let me predict what's going to happen. It seems to me that Ian is about to throw a wrench in this entire scenario that is going to drag everyone in the conversation back to square one of the conversation. They just worked so hard. They got Lance right up to the point where he almost understood the point being made, and then he willfully ignored it to contradict himself yet again. But we've made a lot of progress in the last 10 minutes or so. And now Ian is just going to throw a wrench in the entire situation and bring it right back to square one. I hope I'm wrong.
Giving a 9-month abortion, having that happen, or the actual birthing process, whether by C-section or natural birth, it might have vastly different consequences on the female body. So that's something to take into account.
So wait. Remember the Born Alive Act?
Yes.
That was a Republican position, wasn't it? What was that?
Yeah, so there have been a couple of different Born Alive acts in different years, but what they basically say is that if the abortion fails, it is not legal to kill the child.
Wasn't that Republicans were trying to pass?
The Republicans were trying to pass that. That was one of the only things Obama voted on in the Senate. He voted against it.
Obama voted against it. But you would be in favor of that.
In favor of what?
The Born Alive Act.
I'm not completely familiar with it, so
if an infant is born alive after an attempted abortion, it has the same protection of law and degree as a newborn.
Yeah, I would be okay with that because at that point it's a human. If you're killing a person that is alive outside of a womb, then that's murder, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Can I ask you? This is not a gotcha.
We agree on that. That's great.
I want to ask in good faith. So,
yeah, of course.
You believe that the moment after the child is outside of the birth canal, that they are now endowed with human rights.
Yes.
However, when they are inside of the mother, literally anything you do to them is acceptable because they're inside of the mother.
I don't think anything is acceptable, but I think the mother should still have the choice, ultimate authority over what happens to her body.
But there's a child inside of her body.
Hold on. What about meth?
Like, should she be allowed to do meth?
Yeah.
I think if someone is doing meth while they're pregnant, that it is completely acceptable for something like I don't know what the name of the services in the United States.
Oh, no.
Child services.
I guess CFS would be.
It's her body, though.
No.
Yeah, it's her body.
If she wants to do meth, what's the big deal?
The big deal is that she's.
Oh my God, he is honestly about to argue that here's what he's about to argue. Correct me if I'm wrong. A pregnant woman can decide at 9 months to have an abortion, and instead of removing the perfectly healthy baby and allowing it to live by putting it up for adoption, the state is obligated to murder the child and drag it out of the body limb by limb when it could live on its own and not have to go home with the mother, but the mother is still allowed to decide to murder the baby and have it pulled out of the body limb by limb, and that's considered totally acceptable. But if the mother chooses to do meth, which F's up the child, that is unacceptable and should be reported to the state because the mother's action is harming the child. Are you for real? Do people when they go on he has enough experience of having like exposure to things, right? So I guess I don't understand because the question that's in my head right now is when people go on Timcast, is there some sort of aura about being in this room that you turn stupid? Is he always this stupid? Does anyone know? Is there some sort of fucking Timcast spell that comes over you when you're on this show and you just can't hear yourself? And you can't process logic and reason when you're on this show? Is there something that happens? I don't get it. King Peter of the chat, thank you for the super chat. We watch a lot of very smart, dangerous leftists, but whenever you want to yell about conservatives being hapless, remember Sam and Lance are better comparables to right influencers than academics. You know, Peter, you're bringing up a good point right now because it is true. It is true that the majority of leftists that we watch on this channel are the really smart leftists, the true believer leftists, the leftists that are plotting the takeover and the cultural revolution that we are all going to lose to because we are absolutely on the long, slow descent into socialism and ain't nothing going to stop it. We typically watch the smart leftists and the stupid conservatives. And so perhaps I have done I have not done a good job of balancing. I'm going to think about that, Peter. You're not wrong. All right. Someone pray a rosary or something, please.
He's intentionally trying to kill a child.
Hold on there a minute.
Yeah, and I see where we're going.
I don't understand what you're saying. It's her body.
It's her
if
body.
She wants to do meth. What's the problem?
Well, first off, doing meth is illegal, period. Doesn't matter if you're doing it with a child or without a child.
Not in Oregon.
Methyl and MDMA. It's
Maybe it's alcohol.
Wait, sorry, what?
Not crystal meth.
Crystal meth is legal in Oregon?
No, not crystal.
Hold on a second.
MDMA is a kind of meth. Methylendaxymethamphetamine is ecstasy. That's a kind of meth. There's also crystal meth, which is not legal. MDMA is legal in some places for therapy sessions. I don't know if it's legal for very pregnant women.
Okay, it is.
Is it for pregnant women?
Oregon decriminalized possession in 2021.
You were right.
But I don't know if
But okay, dude. So like,
decriminalizing possession is different than legalizing crystal meth. You know, those two things are completely different, right?
What's the question of whether you can press charges?
Hold on.
Yeah.
What?
So when you decriminalize a small amount of drugs, that means if you're caught with that drugs by a cop, that means if you're arrested, you cannot be charged for 1 gram, 2 grams, whatever that is.
Legalizing is.
No, this is decriminalization, not legalization.
Oh my God.
Legalization is a semantic term. It doesn't mean anything.
Yes, it means
there are reasons that you decriminalize rather than to legalize. The reason that you would that many people would prefer for drugs to be decriminalized is because you can possess them, you can sell them, you can do everything without paying the ridiculous amount of taxes that you have to pay when things are legalized and then come under the purview of the state. I, of course, would never get high on the internet or in life in general. I am completely sober. I would never do such a thing. But has anyone ever been to a dispensary? And has anyone ever looked at the amount of taxes that you pay when you buy weed at a dispensary? I of course have never looked at such a thing because I would never engage in that sort of behavior. But if I were to look at that sort of thing, the taxes that you pay at a dispensary is mind-bogglingly atrocious. And that is the difference between decriminalization and legalization. That is why a lot of people who are completely in favor of ending the drug war don't want things legalized. They do not want it legalized. They want it decriminalized.
It means that there's no longer a prohibition on that product.
Okay, so if a woman does meth, she's legally allowed to have it, right?
Is she legally allowed to do it or possess it?
I mean, what's the difference?
Well, two very different things. You can be legally allowed to possess drugs and not be legally allowed to take drugs, for example.
Alcohol.
So she does alcohol.
Can a woman chug a fifth of vodka while pregnant?
Yeah, she can legally.
But do you think she has a right to do so?
I think she has a right to do. Yes, she has a right to do it. I don't agree with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And heroin?
It's illegal.
I don't think heroin's illegal. I think heroin actually was legalized. I think it's controlled, but I think that one specifically was oxycodone and other drugs. So
she has a right to do it. Whether or not I agree with her doing it, that's completely different. I don't agree with a woman who would have an elective abortion at 9 months. I think that is like, why the fuck would you have done that? But I think she has the right to do it, right?
But do you think it's ethical that she like?
Oh, I don't think it's ethical. No, of course not.
Because some things are made legal that are unethical, in my opinion. True. And should those be made illegal?
I mean, that's a very broad question, right?
No. I'm sorry. Personal use of methamphetamine is allowed. It's a civil citation, like a traffic ticket, not a criminal citation. So allowed maybe is hyperbolic. It is a civil citation to be caught using methamphetamine in Oregon. You get a ticket for it, but no crime.
So I just looked up the Born Alive Act, by the way. It says this bill is deliberately misleading and offensive to pregnant people and doctors and nurses who provide their care. It is another attempt by anti-abortion politicians.
It's offensive to pregnant people. What website did he look that up on? If you're telling me that a bill is offensive to pregnant people, that is a left-wing activist website, whatever he's looking at right now.
Spread misinformation as a means to get a warped political end, to ban safe and legal abortion. It's an entry point to try and make abortion illegal.
Where did you read this?
Okay, well, no, hold on, no. I don't care. I mean, who cares about the Born Alive Act? The question was, if an abortion happens but the baby survives, can you kill it? And Lance already said no. So we're done with that.
So he would, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So any other political arguments, anyone left, right, or otherwise trying to change that, no, it's irrelevant. Once the baby's born, it's a baby. So
it has the same rights as every other human at that point, right?
This is
an American.
This is an interesting. I think this falls in line with the idea of anarcho-tyranny that we were talking about. My view of the modern left is that their positions are nothing but chaos. There's no logical pathway towards preserving life, improving people's lives. It seems to be.
That's because. Why does it seem that way? Pop quiz for the chat. I know it's almost 3 a.m., but it's important we can answer this question at all times. Why does it seem to Tim like the goal of the left is to create chaos? Why might that be the case? Why might that be a deliberative effort to create chaos? Because the 4 goals of the woke left are always and forever: gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. The left's only goal is to get as much power as they can to implement practices and policies that will fundamentally destabilize the system and cause problems. They then use that destabilization in order to blame capitalism, to turn the populace against capitalism as the creator of all their problems. And once they've got the populace turned against capitalism, they use that angst to usher in their Marxist utopia. If it seems as though the left is always trying to create problems, always and forever trying to create chaos and cause disruption to the system, that is why. That is their goal. It is a feature. It is not a bug. Once you start looking at what the left is doing through this lens, you will understand why they do everything they do.
It's like yin yang, right? There's one side that's talking about long-term planning, logical thinking, and improving the world, and one side that takes the inverse position no matter what. For instance, 25 people push in front of a subway, nobody bats an eye. 3 guys try to subdue a man, and now they want prison. That's like a weird inversion of what the law is supposed to do. The law should stop.
Because the left wants to destabilize the system. People have got to stop treating the left as though it is a logical, rational thing. I wrote an article for my series, The Woke Mind. You can find it on my Substack, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. There's a link in the description below. There is a link in the top of the menu that says The Woke Mind. It is the very first article in this series where I break down the psychology of the woke left, and I explain to you exactly why they do what they do. The woke left has completely different values. Their values are not our values. Their goals are not our goals. Their only goal is to push the culture towards Marxism. That is it. Everything they do is underneath that goal. That means that logic is not their goal. Taking a principled position is not their goal. Creating a stable society is not their goal. None of those things are their goals. They do not value them. You will understand why the left does what it does when you understand that they have a completely different worldview than you do. They have completely different values than you do, and they are hyper-focused on what they are trying to do, and they have literally erected an entire system that is designed to feed what they want to do, starting from the moment that you put your kids in public school when they are 4 years old in pre-kindergarten. That's when it starts. And they've been doing this for a long time. The goal is not to have a nice, peaceful, stable society in which everyone has everything they need and you can live with a family on a middle-class job. That is not the goal. The goal is not to end racism. The goal is not to create more fairness and justice. The goal is not for everyone to have health care. The goal is not for everyone's student loans to be paid off. All of these are simply tactics that they apply to gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, and usher in their Marxist utopia. Please memorize this. please start looking at the world through this lens. Because we can go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, having these conversations all the time. Well, why does the left do this? I just don't understand. Why do they want fiery but mostly peaceful protests? Why are they saying that some things are insurrections and other things are not insurrections? Why are they fortifying elections? I just don't understand this at all. It's so crystal clear why they're doing it. It is crystal effing clear why they are doing it. Can we please stop having the conversation of, I just don't understand why this is happening? Because we've been having that conversation for a really effing long time and pointing out the hypocrisy and the ridiculousness of why they are doing what they are doing is not going to solve the problem. If pointing out the hypocrisy of the woke left would have solved the problem, then this problem would have been solved a long ass time ago. People need to start seeing them for what they are. They are Marxists who are pushing a Marxist agenda starting in elementary school. That is what they are. That is what they're doing. That is what they have been trained to do at every single level of their education. That is why the only thing that matters is the public schools. Everything else is a distraction. The public schools are the training ground for all of this. We know that. We have the curriculum. We know what the curriculum says. We know what the policies say. We know what professional development training the teachers are undergoing. Everything depends on the schools turning out these little Marxists running around, creating chaos. And what people are looking at is the chaos that they are creating. They are only paying attention to the chaos that they are creating, saying, why is this chaos happening? I just don't understand. Why is this chaos happening? I just don't understand. It's happening because this is the logical end result of the system that they designed, that they implemented for the specific and exclusive purpose of gaining as much power as possible, destabilizing the system, attacking capitalism, ushering in their Marxist utopia. Can we please stop being confused about this? Because it is crystal effing clear to anyone paying attention.
Stop the people who are pushing people on the trains and protect the people on the train who are...
I'm sorry, I missed a super chat from Jenny's getting inky with it. I had a good rant there. That felt really good. The left acts stupid because it destabilized the conversation, which gives them control of the convo to either get you unwittingly on their side or paint you as the enemy. That is exactly right, Jenny. They took control of the language, they control the media narrative, they control the talking points, and they will use, because those are all elements of gaining power. They gained power by gaining institutional power within the systems. They gained institutional power within the media. They gained institutional power within the news. And then they used that to make sure that their narratives and their talking points were pushed so that they could paint one side as the hero and the other side as the villain, because they're using their power to destabilize the system.
Being victimized. But the left's position is the inverse of it, right?
Are you asking me for like an affirmation of that? Because if you ask me...
No, I'm just saying like that's my view.
So when you say the left's idea are all chaos, I mean, if you really wanted to boil down what the left is fighting for, especially myself, it's expanding freedom. I believe in freedom. I love freedom. I'm sure everyone here likes freedom too, right?